It was a tense scene in the city of Culiacan, Mexico, as a group of officers surrounded a home with their weapons drawn, and that tension was more than justified, as the officers were soon to become part of history, taking down one of the most notorious criminals in the region, a man named Ovidio Guzman Lopez, the son of Joaquin Guzman, also known as El Chapo.
There he is, the man known as El Chapo, finally back in custody after 13 years on the run since bribing his way out of prison.
Despite his father having been arrested back in 2014, Ovidio was still a free man, continuing his father's legacy by taking a lead role in the cartel. But this day was set to be his last as a free man, as officers prepared to enter the home and detain Ovidio. The sting itself was supposedly set up by the Mexican government as a way to halt the cartel's reign over the region, and for the cops partaking in this daring moment, they were set to be heroes should it all go off without a hitch.
Sal, Ovidio. Vente, tranquilo, señor. Tranquilo. Ven, Ovidio, venga, tranquilo, salga aquí, venga. Tranquilo, tranquilo. Aquí, señor. Tranquilo. Listo. Anda aquí, tomamos. ¿Traes armas?
In that day, that's exactly what would happen, as Ovidio was taken into custody and the scene was secured without a single shot being fired, making what should have been a huge win for the Mexican government, had the story ended there.
The city of Culiacan, Mexico, the historic homeland to the violent Sinaloa drug cartel, turned into a battle zone Thursday.
The city quickly became a war zone, with the cartel sending over 700 armed soldiers in retaliation against the arrest of Ovidio, all despite the fact that officers had actually made Ovidio call off any such actions by the cartel, as shown in the end of this body cam footage, though they refused to listen. And within hours, the military in the region was completely overwhelmed. And with the city in absolute chaos and countless fatalities looming in the distance, the Mexican government would make a shocking decision to allow Ovidio Guzman to walk free.
That's crazy.
The move was stunning, though it did immediately quell the fighting in the region, and for a moment, all seemed calm. Though in the minds of the cartel members, things were nowhere near even.
That's insane.
Which brings us back to this video. In it, we see multiple officers taking part in the operation, with the leader of it all being a man named Eduardo. And though these officers likely thought that their actions that day would make them heroes, this decision would instead make them hunted. Just days after the botched arrest, Eduardo would be stalked and confronted by armed members of the cartel, who would open fire in a hailstorm of bullets when the man was in his car. In total, 155 shots were fired at Eduardo, who never stood a chance. And the horrors of this video don't end there, as despite Eduardo being the only officially confirmed death of all of these officers, it has been heavily rumored that in the time since the recording, every single one of the officers seen in this clip have since been killed, as they became the cartel's easiest form of revenge against the police, being picked off one by one to send a message to the whole world. And watching this clip back and seeing just how calm Ovidio was during his arrest, I have to believe that he knew that this was going to happen. And though he was the one being arrested, it really seemed like it was the police that had fallen into his trap, making this yet another example of the disturbed content found across the depths of YouTube.
I know,
depths
bro,
in which today we are yet again.
The crazy thing is, like, the Americans back in like Reagan's era tried to shut down all the cartels in Mexico and Colombia with the DEA, and they failed. They basically stopped reporting on it. Cartels still run shit. They still run crazy, killing whole families, bribing politicians. It's crazy.
And diving into as we look to discover more of YouTube's darkest videos.
Just they cut one down, another one pops up.
I'm glad you can.
No place that I'd rather be, because the Christmas spirit here is just unbelievable.
Since its inception, YouTube has been used as a launching ground for aspiring performers to have their work noticed by the masses. But for every success story you see across the site, there are hundreds of thousands of others who will land well short of achieving that fame.
Yeah.
And lost in the crowd of these
What up,
nameless
Sinstra?
faces was an aspiring rapper named Mathboy Fly. His real name is Daryl
Math?
Brooks, a now 39-year-old man who had spent most of his life on the wrong side of the law. At the age of just 17, he would pick up his first felony for battery, and from there he would never really get his life back on track, picking up fresh charges on a regular basis. By
Damn.
2007, Daryl's life was in a total freefall, as he had become addicted
What a
to
name.
meth while picking up his most
It's not Math Boy, maybe it's Meth Boy, Ali.
serious conviction yet for rape against a minor,
Oh,
which not only
or
landed
against
him
a
in prison,
minor?
but it also landed him on the sex offender registry. Clearly, Daryl was a disturbed
Oh my
man dealing
God,
with some
Math
extremely
Boy.
dark personal demons, which just so happened to be captured by
Bro, he's part of OVO.
a film crew who at the time were documenting the struggles of meth addiction. The movie's name is Crystal Darkness, and in it we see a short segment showing Daryl in prison, sharing how he had abandoned his
could
kid
you?
due to his addiction, while expressing
Damn,
regret
bro, we're
that
never
he
gonna get a
couldn't give his
Math Boy
child a better
album,
life.
bro.
You know, I got this beautiful kid who's
Whoa.
going without my time.
Beautiful kid,
I
chill,
thought I would
bro.
just be this
Already got caught
wonderful
once.
father, just be the greatest dad ever. I'm gonna give him everything that I didn't have. But then it's like reality set in.
In an interview years later, the director of the project, a man named Logan Needham, described Daryl as seemingly genuine in his pursuit to turn his life around, stating, "I felt like he definitely had remorse, and I think he felt bad about the decisions he had made to land him where he was." However, Daryl would never turn this new leaf, and once he was released, his dangerous behavior only got worse, as
Yeah, I
time and
don't
time
think being a
again
chi-
he would
I
find
agree with
himself
me.
back
Child
behind
predators, you
bars,
can't come
facing
back.
charges like strangulation, domestic abuse,
Like,
and
you're
bail
just an
jumping.
Evil piece
Though
of
he
shit after
didn't let
that.
these endless legal
Lot of crimes you
troubles
can
get
come
in the
back
way of
from
his one
change,
true
but
dream, a dream that he
not being a
believed
child
would
predator.
finally bring him some semblance of success in this world,
extra
with
level
that
of
being
evil.
to become a famous rapper. And so he took on the nickname Mathboy Fly and began
I
posting
think
his
it's
music.
kind of crazy. You can go from like being in prison and like being a pedophile, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna be a rapper now. Like, I thought pedophiles like careers were being pedophiles. Like, I didn't know they had other aspirations. Exactly. I mean, I do consciously do it. Pissing me off.
to
Crazy to me.
YouTube, where we find what would one day become one of the darkest videos on the site.
All these guys hanging out with a pedophile.
I just got a load worth about a half a ticket. 30 in the blicker when I'm out here chasing chicken. Was observant to the game when I used to play the benches. Now I swipe Da Vinci, got him looking at me different.
That is so bad.
The video was posted back in the summer of 2018
Holy
and featured
fuck.
Daryl's song, Half a Ticket. The video features a lot of your standard music video visuals, though ultimately nothing really stands out all that much upon first viewing, aside from how bad it sounds. But today, this clip is viewed in a far different manner. Around the
Straight
time of its
ass.
release, something was brewing inside of Daryl.
Bro
His
can't
life
do
was at a
anything
dead
right.
end and he knew it, leading to his violent temper growing worse and worse by the day. In
Math on that
2020,
song,
Daryl would
the
be arrested
numbers,
for
no.
firing a shot at his nephew during an argument, and though the bullet thankfully
My
missed
God,
the man,
light skin.
Daryl would still be faced with 10 years in prison, as police discovered that the gun he had used was actually stolen, along with a large amount of meth being found in Daryl's
Meth,
pocket,
I knew he was
which all
meth boy.
cultivated into the prospect of a lengthy prison
Bro, that's what I'm
sentence.
saying. I thought it
Though
was
due
a
to
reflection
issues
of
with the
screen for a
pandemic,
second.
Daryl would eventually be allowed to
Bad.
leave police custody, as his bail had been reduced to just $500.
I like how he's
Unsurprising-
like acting like a gangster, like a hardened criminal. Like, oh, I spent time in prison. I'm a gangster. What'd you go to prison for? Robbing a store, selling drugs, gang violence? No, for being a pedophile. Hey, Tiff.
This would further enable Daryl's behavior, and the following year he would yet again be arrested. In this particular case, Daryl had been in his car stalking his ex-girlfriend, who was also the mother of his child, before pulling up alongside her and demanding that she get in. Concerned for her safety, the woman refused to enter the car, to which Daryl reacted by running her over. Thankfully, this woman too would survive the ordeal, though shockingly, despite Daryl's constant run-ins with the law, as well as this crime having taken place when he was literally already on bail, he would yet again avoid jail time, as his bail was in this case set at just $1,000.
Stalking, like, bro, I've had a
Free
stalker, I had to
again,
go to the
Daryl
police
likely
for it,
began
it's
to think
insane.
that he was above the law,
Stalking
which
is
paired
no
with
good.
his escalating anger would unsurprisingly lead to one more violent outburst. Though what was surprising was just how violent it would be. On November 21st, 2021, days after Daryl's most recent arrest, police would be called to the home of his ex-girlfriend as they had yet again gotten into another dispute. But this time, before things had gotten too far out of hand, Daryl stormed out, got into his car, and drove away. Though rather than this being some sign of restraint, this was instead seemingly part of a far more malicious decision, leading to one devastating
so mentally
event.
ill, bro. They are like obsessive over people. Oh, he drove through the parade. I remember hearing about this, but I didn't know the backstory.
That day, Daryl Brooks would drive his car directly into the annual Waukesha Christmas Parade at speeds of over 40 miles per hour, driving in a zigzag pattern in an attempt to strike as many people as possible, none of whom Daryl had known personally, as this was simply an act of pure rage. The videos of this event and its aftermath are brutal, and it's something that I'm not allowed to fully show here, but in total, 62 people were struck, most of whom were children or senior citizens who were just trying to enjoy this beloved community celebration. And of these victims, sadly, 6 would perish.
6 deaths.
Following the tragedy, Daryl attempted to flee the area, even begging a stranger to let him into his home and to order him an Uber, which would be caught on a Ring doorbell camera, though he would quickly be captured by police soon after, and is now facing a whopping 77 charges. And despite the leniency he's enjoyed from the court system over the years, it seems that this time, the judge will not show him that same type of mercy.
Jesus.
I wasn't a human anymore. I was just something vile, disgusting, despicable. I could go on, I could use a lot of words, but that's what I became.
People are so scared of each other.
It's really what I became.
Knowing what Daryl has become, and watching this documentary back with this context, makes it a truly haunting watch, as no one involved, not even Daryl himself, knew just how bad things would one day become. But there is a reason that I mentioned this seemingly obscure music video as being one of the darkest videos on the site, and it's for a reason that is very easy to look right over.
I just got a load worth about a half a ticket.
As Daryl is shown rapping in the video, within its background, we can see a red SUV. The same SUV that just a few years later would bring chaos, pain, and despair to a local parade, and ultimately end the lives of so many innocent people.
We've had a great time, haven't we?
That's right. Santa's out there with a lot of cheer and goodwill.
Families can have lots of fun together, but sometimes we get angry at our brotherly
love. Oh no.
Our next video takes us all the way around the world to a little-known village in northeastern Somalia called Halam. In October of 2021, a video from the region began circulating across the web, showcasing what appears to be an unremarkable scene playing out, as 2 men from the village were being interviewed separately. As one of the men is seen talking, a few individuals appear behind him, working as if they were preparing for some sort of event, or perhaps just doing some farming. Given the language barrier and a lack of translation included, it's impossible to tell what these men are discussing upon an initial watch, and given just how normal it all seems, it offers little reason to be dove into any further, had it not been for two bizarre details. For starters, the thumbnail is quite unusual, as it shows a man who is not featured within the video, tied up and clearly looking upset, while one of the men who is being interviewed is shown standing proudly alongside him. Making things even stranger, the title, which is written in Somali, translates to the fairly disturbing line, "Garo, the killer of his mother, was shot dead today." Despite things appearing unremarkable in the video itself, the thumbnail and the title alone were enough to pique the interest of a select few who just so happened to stumble upon this practically unknown upload. And those who chose to dig any deeper would be greeted with the true horrors of the scene playing out before them. Upon performing a general Google search of the video's title, users will be greeted with a plethora of uploads featuring footage of the same event, one of which even showing footage of the man in the blue shirt tied up with his head down. And the results didn't stop there, as searching the title would also lead to the discovery of a multitude of articles that also depict this very event that we see unfolding, which would ultimately add clarity to the situation, as it was revealed that this bound man shown in the footage and the thumbnail was actually a cold-blooded killer. His name is Farah Abdi Mohammed, and during that previous summer, he had apparently fallen into what was described as a drug-fueled rage, which would ultimately end with him taking the life of his very own mother. And making matters even more tragic, he was one of 7 siblings, meaning that 6 other individuals had lost their mother thanks to this man's disturbed behavior. The case went unnoticed by most outside media outlets, though within this small village, it sent ripples across the community, as his crime was so heinous and his guilt was unquestionable. And with Farah quickly landing in custody, the question was then posed, what do we do with him now? Would prison really be enough of a punishment for this individual, or should he face the death penalty? Ultimately, authorities would leave this decision to the remaining siblings of Farah, who would be tasked with determining his fate. And it was from these discussions that Farah's brother, a man named Awai, would come forward with the decision that Farah should suffer the same fate as their mother did, and that he should face execution. Though this wasn't all Awai had to say, as his decision came with an interesting proposal. He wanted to make a spectacle of the execution and send a message all across the region that those who take the lives of their mothers will have their own lives taken in return. And so, to assure that this was seen by the masses and to prove just how serious Awai was with his message, he would request to be the executioner. So on October 17th, 2021, news cameras gathered in the town as Awai was interviewed, in preparation to take the life of his own brother and the killer of his mother, as he's seen here even posing alongside Farah just moments before the execution. The situation is almost impossibly grim, and to make things just that much darker, those men seen working in the background of Awai's interview were in fact helping to set up for the event, or at least the aftermath of it, as in actuality, they were quite literally digging Farah's grave right behind his own brother, with Farah watching it all happen just off camera.
That's crazy.
And so in the moments following this footage, Awai was handed a gun, which he would press against the head of his brother Farah and pull the trigger. The layers to this clip are almost incomprehensible, especially considering how calm everyone seems in the minutes leading to this execution. Even Farah, whose life was soon to end, seemed to show no panic whatsoever, despite his grave literally being dug right before his eyes. Yet no one seemed to show any sort of emotion. It's almost like everyone understood their roles and accepted what needed to be done, leading to this one unconventional, yet almost indescribably disturbing video.
We'll show you how to make all kinds of delicious things to eat.
This video is sponsored by Hello Lisso Trim Chicken from Com and use gift.
Think about what we like about our brother. We won't stay angry very long. I'm glad when friends make up and share a hug.
You know it's God who created these bodies of ours, and it's God who blesses them, and with his help, keep these bodies
working in optimum condition.
February 13th, 2014, a man named Kevin Bennett approaches a busy intersection on his way to work in the city of Hampton, Missouri. The morning commute had gone just like any other. Typical traffic, fair weather, and on the corner of the intersection, a man was dancing. He was a well-known figure in the area, or at least his performances were, as virtually every morning he would be there, not saying a word, not begging for money, just simply dancing. Like many others, Kevin found the man to be uniquely charming, and so he decided to film that morning's performance and post it to YouTube for others to see.
Hampton Dancing Land. Getting after it this morning. Putting out the good vibes for all the commuters.
I hope there's music.
The video was met with over 10,000 views, and even led to a mention in the local news reports, as collectively the community wanted to know who exactly this man was.
This guy does the rest of his day.
No one knew it then, but this man's name is actually Seth Herder, and what they were witnessing wasn't some type of light-hearted dance routine, but rather the deterioration of a man's mind, which was playing out in real time.
Hi everyone, my name's Seth Herder.
At the time, Seth was an unemployed man in his late 20s who had been struggling with multiple psychological conditions, leading to his behavior becoming somewhat erratic as time passed. This was cataloged throughout his frequent postings across the web, where he would type bizarre religious ramblings claiming that Jesus would soon be returning to Earth alongside intergalactic beings. But sifting through countless posts of this same vein, Seth actually mentioned his daily dance routine on a few separate occasions, referring to it not just as a performance, but also as some sort of religious ritual that he was using to spread his message. And though this message was never expressly stated, most would assume that it was based around the idea of peace, as he would often say things like, "I love all beings forever, and seek never to kill nor harm nor destroy any living thing, no tree, nor bird, nor bee, nor dragonfly." However, as time passed, he would slowly drift away from this particular belief. Throughout much of Seth's adult life, he struggled to hold down consistent residency, being evicted time and time again for things such as noise complaints and heavy smoking. And by 2018, Seth had again found himself moving into a brand new apartment, and it was within those walls that his behavior would take a troubling turn. Almost immediately, neighbors in his complex began complaining about Seth's behavior, stating that he had been seen multiple times running down the hallway over and over again with a katana in his hand. Even more bizarrely, others claimed to have seen him standing behind the apartment building, alone in the dead of night, standing there in complete darkness, brandishing his sword and just dancing alone in the dark for hours and hours on end, with him appearing to be in some sort of trance-like state, completely unresponsive to the world around him. And his behavior didn't stop there, as seemingly out of the blue, Seth began verbally harassing his neighbors and starting fights over seemingly nothing at all, where he was said to have displayed a genuine and even frightening anger that seemed to be growing more and more uncontrollable, though it's hard to say for sure what exactly was on Seth's mind during this time, as he had abandoned all of his social media in the years prior, leaving what had once been his daily blog and his Twitter account completely dormant, and practically stopping his trail across the entire internet, with the exception of one site. As for whatever reason, Seth seemed to take a liking to one unique platform during all of this, with that site being Amazon. Seth was an avid reviewer across Amazon, leaving his thoughts on the various religious texts and tokens that he had purchased prior to the height of his manic episodes, which is all fine and well, but starting in 2018, his purchases and reviews began to grow worrisome. For instance, in March of that year, Seth had purchased and reviewed a pair of industrial-strength metal handcuffs, which he reviewed by saying, "Strong metal, good case, be careful." On another occasion, he had purchased a set of knives, throwing blades, and his katana that he had used multiple times across his apartment building, referring to the sword as amazing, stating that, "For $20, it really is an excellent blade. I am very impressed with the quality. The tip was razor sharp and easily capable of penetrating most targets I put it up against. Once again, a great purchase for $20, very capable of killing. It is a fighting blade for sure." The post was also accompanied by a photo of himself with the weapon in his hand. There are some definite red flags here in his reviews, but the most disturbing example of all would come just a month later, as Seth would describe his experience with a specific taser that he had purchased by saying, "I bought this exact stun gun model. In a fit of rage, I shocked myself in the face and neck about 30 times with the unit. It left visible welts on my chest and neck. The stun gun is effective. It has a loud audible snap that really goes straight to the dark parts of someone's psyche. It really is a potent psychological defense weapon." He then followed up this post by saying that shocking himself was exhilarating to say the least. The items in which Seth had been purchasing and the subsequent reviews he had left for them were clearly very concerning, but for those who knew him personally, things were actually becoming even more frightening. As around this time,
because I always read the reviews if I'm getting a good product. I'm like, I appreciate you guys leaving good reviews, because I never be leaving reviews on anything.
Seth would call his father to explain that Jesus had spoken to him and had selected him to carry out certain tasks, claiming that he was the chosen one and that it was time to start punishing people. Seth's father would immediately contact authorities, as he was unsure of what his son's intentions were, though nothing would be done about it, leaving the door wide open for Seth's punishments to begin. On the evening of May 2nd, 2018, Seth invited his ex-boyfriend Christopher to his apartment, begging the man to come over and claiming that the CIA was listening to his thoughts. And sensing that Seth was clearly in need of help, Christopher agreed to stop by. A decision that would ultimately backfire, as once together, the two quickly began to argue, leading to an all-out shouting match that soon turned physical. And in a fit of rage, Seth would grab his katana and in an instant begin attacking, slicing Christopher over and over and over again. And as it turns out, Seth's review was in fact accurate, and his katana was certainly capable of killing. The scene would be discovered days later when maintenance workers were confronted with the carnage in the unit, while on the ground was Christopher's lifeless body. Despite an attempt to flee, Seth Herder was caught soon after inflicting this punishment, and later claimed that it was all done in a fit of delusion. With Christopher having unfortunately been caught in his crossfire, with more victims likely to have followed had it not been for his capture, has given his need to inflict pain onto the world, as well as the concerning items that he had purchased throughout Amazon. Who knows what else he was capable of.
From dancing on the streets to murdering
it's pretty jarring seeing this man who was once known for his cheerful dancing, becoming a convicted killer who will likely never see the outside of a prison again. But throughout the whole case, there's still one question that looms over everything. The dancing. Why did he do it? What was the message behind it all? Well, this would actually be answered by Seth himself during an interview in late 2018, as following his heinous crime, he stated how he believed he was the chosen one, hand-selected by God, but not as some second coming of Jesus or anything like that, but rather, he believed he was the Antichrist, a figure chosen to bring pain and suffering onto the world. And with this mindset, Seth referred to his dancing by saying, "That was me going out in public and demonstrating to people that I was the Antichrist." In his mind, the dancing was a test, and if people took notice, it meant that they were recognizing his powers. And the more they recognized this, the more he believed these powers to be real. Every honk, every shout from a window, every picture taken was ultimately further supporting this man's delusion, pushing him closer and closer to the brink of complete insanity, validating and even feeding these dark thoughts that were consuming him, and the further it drove him to kill. And all the while, no one knew it. They all thought they were being friendly and supporting these lighthearted performances.
Like, yeah, you never know.
And
who you're
darkest of
hyping
all,
up, bro.
this video taken by Kevin Bennett on the morning of February 13th, 2014, the seemingly harmless, wholesome clip from the very beginning, was in all actuality Seth Herder's magnum opus. As between the views it garnered and the newspaper article that stemmed from it, this is what he viewed as the ultimate recognition of his powers, with him even admitting that this was the most overwhelming piece of confirmation in his mind that he was actually the Antichrist, which eventually led him to
Yep, that's me. I'm the Antichrist. 10K views.
take the life of an innocent man.
Good. Can you say with me, he grants me according to the riches of his glory? Say that with me.
Big on TikTok.
Today was going to be a big day for me. It was my first trip away from home.
Turnip family.
It was a day of celebration for David Turpin and his wife Louise, another in a long line of wedding anniversaries that they'd celebrate by renewing their vows in Vegas. And to make the moment even more special, they were able to do so with their 13 children in attendance. When they first married all the way back in 1985, David was just a 23-year-old man, and Louise was a 16-year-old child. And despite all the years that had passed, it seemed the love they had for each other was still very much blossoming, as they renewed their vows to each other in this same manner practically every year, as shown in other clips scattered across YouTube. And aside from the love they had for each other, these videos also seem to show the love they had for their children, as together, the group seemed to form a massive yet close-knit family unit, known as the Turpin family. And these clips would be just the start of their long trail left here on YouTube. Sometime following these various clips being left across the internet, one of the daughters shown within this old footage would begin uploading videos of her own life to a secret channel that at the time only she knew of. The then 17-year-old's name is Jordan Turpin, and across her page she would post videos of herself singing original songs in her bedroom.
But it's over, it's over, it's over.
While showing incredibly brief glimpses into her home life. And as a whole, these videos seem nothing too out of the ordinary, especially for a 17-year-old girl, with her uploads eventually coming to an end following the posting of yet another singing video.
Everybody used to post videos like that.
And throughout the channel's lifespan, there really are no obvious red flags that could point to any concerning activity happening behind the scenes.
She's like
as aside from a few moments here and there, Jordan never really opened up to the camera or revealed any details about her personal life, as for the most part, she only used the page for her music, making it practically impossible to tell that in reality, something unbelievably sinister was transpiring within the walls of the Turpin home, with it having gone unnoticed for years before, and what would have likely been years later, had it not been for the actions of Jordan. As just 1 week after her final upload, a call would be made to 911 from the young lady herself.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
I just went away from home because I lived in a family of 15. We have abusing parents. Did you hear that? They hit us, they throw us across, they like to throw us across the room. They pull our hair, they yank out our hair. My 2 little sisters right now are chained up.
Put them in cages.
In this clip, we hear the audio from Jordan's call to the local police station as she attempts to explain that her parents had not only been abusing her, but all of her siblings as well.
Oh my god.
Given the severity of the claim, an officer would immediately be sent to meet with Jordan, who had been standing outside in a nearby neighborhood, with the entire interaction being captured on the officer's body camera.
What's going on?
Okay. I
I just ran away from home.
Okay.
And I live in a family of 15.
Okay.
My 2 little sisters right now are chained up.
They're chained up?
Yes.
Where are they chained up at?
On their bed. They're chained up because they stole mother's food.
Okay.
But they stole it because they were hungry.
Oh, if a kid calls their mom mother, they're definitely been abused.
Explains to the officer that 2 of her siblings were currently chained to their beds, all because they had attempted to steal some of their mother's food. Even more shockingly, Jordan explains that her nervous and oftentimes awkward behavior was due to the fact that she had never really met anyone from the outside world.
I'm sorry if I talk too much. I've never talked to anybody out there, so I've never been alone with a person, so it's very hard for me to talk.
And that in order for her to get help, she literally had to escape from her own home, as she was never allowed to leave.
And the reason I managed to get out here, this is one of the most scariest things I've ever done. I'm terrified.
Initially, the officer was a bit hesitant, even questioning whether Jordan was on medication, to which she responded in a confused manner, due to the fact that she had never even heard that word before.
Do you take any medication?
What's medication?
Medication?
Yeah, what's medication?
Do you take pills? Do you take pills?
And ultimately, the man eventually realizes just how serious the situation was, as Jordan actually came with proof.
I don't have proof of everything, but I have proof that my sisters are chained up. Look at that. See, those are the places that make it know that. And see how dirty she is? We're so filthy. We don't take baths. We don't.
How did your sisters get like this? Your parents chained them up?
Yes.
The whole ordeal was shocking, though it was only part of the story, as when police entered the home that very night, they discovered the full scope of the abuse that had been taking place within that building. Inside, officers would be greeted with the overwhelming scent of excrement and garbage, which was covering practically the entirety of the house. They would also find 12 other siblings, one of whom had been chained up for weeks, and 2 others that had just recently been freed. The children were malnourished beyond belief and incredibly frail, and much to the shock of the officers, some of them were actually adults, with the oldest being 29 years old, though had been mistakenly believed to be a child, as they had weighed only 89 pounds, due to the fact that the children were only allowed to eat a small amount just once per day. The children were all covered in bruises, which had come from the constant beatings from their parents, while also being covered in filth, as individually the kids were only allowed 1 shower, not per day and not per week, but per year. The abuse that had gone on in the Turpin family home at the hands of both Luis and David was truly unthinkable, with perhaps the most egregious crime being committed by Luis, as on many occasions she was said to have prostituted multiple of her children to wealthy men, and all in order to earn more money for the family, while the couple otherwise kept the children locked within the home for the entirety of their lives, torturing them beyond belief, despite the fact that on social media they would post photos portraying them as a perfect loving unit. Which leads me back to the trail of videos left behind on YouTube. For starters, you may be wondering how these children were able to attend these wedding ceremonies if they were truly never allowed to leave the house. Well, these clips actually show what may very well be the only times in these kids' lives that they were ever allowed to leave their home, as once a year they were allowed to go to this ceremony, not as a reward or anything like that, but to disguise the Turpins as being a happy family. This footage quite literally shows some of the only moments of freedom within these children's entire life up until this point. And as for the videos that Jordan had posted to her YouTube channel, well, there's a reason that I said that it was a secret page that only she knew of, because social media or contact from the outside world in any form was strictly prohibited throughout the house. And if her parents had known about this channel, it's likely that she would have faced unimaginable punishment. However, this didn't stop Jordan from uploading these clips, with them likely being a desperate attempt to be heard from anyone else out there in the world that she had forever been kept from. And in many ways, this displays the bravery that Jordan clearly had within her, and the bravery that would eventually lead to her taking the ultimate risk, breaking free of the home and saving her siblings from this torture. And if she hadn't done this, it's likely the kids would have remained imprisoned to this day. The full case of the Turpin family is a rabbit hole far too extensive to fully explain here, but eventually the parents would wind up going to trial, where it would be decided that they would spend the rest of their lives in prison. And though this tragic case has forever left an impact on the 13 children involved, we can at least take some solace in the fact that this torture is over now.
Those kids are scarred for life.
Or at least it should have been.
A foster family in Paris has been accused of abusing several foster children, including some of the Turpin siblings.
In what would become the most tragic twist imaginable in a case like this, it was just recently revealed that the foster family who had taken 5 of the Turpin children has now been accused of abusing those very kids. The parents, Marcelino Olgan and Rosa Olgan, along with their son Lenny, are all facing over a dozen charges, including child cruelty, witness intimidation, and false imprisonment. And making matters even more demented is the fact that the father, Marcelino, was additionally charged with performing lewd acts on a minor, as it's been alleged that he actually molested 2 of the children. It is just such a tragic revelation to come from an already sickening case, and the fact that this was able to happen to these kids again is some of the most disheartening news that I have ever heard. And I hate to leave this video off on such an awful note, so I do want to say that some of the Turpin children have gone on to live their own lives that thankfully have been free of abuse, as Jordan herself has actually become a star on TikTok and is clearly thriving given her newfound freedom. So it isn't all horribly depressing, but some of it sadly is, and I hope that the remaining children can finally be placed in a loving environment, free of the abuse that has plagued their life, quite literally since the moment they were born.
Time for bed, Granny said. Granny tucked me in, kissed me goodnight. Sleep tight, she said.
TikTok a while
But
back.
I did not sleep tight.
That was nuts.
I thought about home.
You guys want to watch
And the
another
more I
spooky
thought,
video like this, or
the
you want to watch
sadder
some
I
Jersey
felt.
Shore?
I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons, Alexander Duran, American.
She's like an icon now.
Things only get darker from
Did we watch this?
And so our story.
were pieces of a broken camera.
And so our.
I can't tell if we've seen that. I don't know. I don't know about it.
I'm so sorry that I've done this. I want you to know that you mean everything to me.
A major break in the shooting of a...
See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
Back when cigarettes were cool.
Please come home.
Hey guys, what's up? It is Harley Dilly.
Our first channel, like many others we've discussed before, doesn't look like much at a glance. It's an account run by a young boy named Harley Dilly, which served as an outlet for him to post videos about his life, his favorite video games, and even the occasional live stream. And quite honestly, the majority of this YouTube channel seems completely normal.
He had more subs than I
But
have
when
on
looking
YouTube.
at this content
Fuck that
closer,
kid.
it becomes more and more apparent that there was darkness lurking behind the scenes. Darkness that would become even more apparent as in December of 2019, Harley Dilly would vanish.
But first, a heartbroken mother waiting for her missing son to walk back into her arms.
Tonight marks 7 days since the disappearance of 14-year-old Harley Dilly.
Somehow, love angelic.
Like many kids his age, Harley was interested in video games, such as Roblox and Madden, and he had been posting videos of himself playing these games since the young age of 10 years old.
Damn, even grinding.
Over time, Harley would begin to show his audience more and more about his life, with topics ranging from his hobbies to his recent performances at school. And even through this, there was nothing that really seemed to hint at anything dark happening in Harley's life. But over time, a clear trend starts to emerge within these videos, and that is the fact that Harley and his mother would frequently get in arguments.
So yesterday, well actually today, my mom and I got into an argument because I didn't want to walk to school. Because I live like 4 blocks and it's like 34 degrees.
Damn.
This is something mentioned multiple times throughout these early videos, and it's nothing all that surprising. I mean, after all, most kids will argue with their parents, and it's likely that Harley was using his channel as an outlet to express his frustrations. But any idea of this being your typical family bickering would soon be thrown out the window in October of 2018, when Harley would hold a now deleted live stream titled, "I'm Scared."
What's up? It is Harley Dewey. Probably one of my worst days of my life. My mom wanted me to go with her to go get a friend, and I said I don't want to. I have work to do, so I want to go home. We argued for about a good 5 minutes. Then she snapped. She said she was gonna call the police, and she said she already did. And she locked me out of the house. So right now I'm outside. Yep, the house is locked. I haven't ate anything, and I still haven't even got to get my work done. My mom's
Damn,
gone.
my kid better
She
not
won't
be
answer the
exposing
phone.
me on the camera like
legit
this.
was
I mean,
scared.
I would never treat him like this, but at the same time, like...
In the video, we see Harley outside in the cold, as he explains that his mother had threatened to call the police on him over an argument that the two had had. On top of this, his mother also locked him outside of the house without any food or water on a frigid October night. Now clearly these aren't really healthy things for his mother to be doing, especially given the fact that at this time, Harley was merely 12 years old. And this extreme punishment came from a situation that didn't seem all that bad. The whole situation is a major red flag that's made all the more concerning after Harley says the following line.
I just want you guys to wish me good luck, because the future could hold bad things for me. I don't want to find out what that could mean.
Damn. Poor guy, poor kid.
The relationship between Harley and his mother clearly comes across as toxic within this video, and this was far from a one-time thing. In fact, in details that would later emerge, it would be revealed that Harley's mother had actually called the police on him on 5 separate occasions, one of which coming when he was only 10 years old. Now you might take this information and just assume that Harley was a poorly behaved kid. However, in actuality, Harley had ADHD as well as high-functioning autism, 2 disorders that can cause hyperfixation, outbursts, and many of the behaviors that had led to all of these family arguments. And in these situations, Harley is practically powerless.
And you need to get him checked and have doctors look at him so you know how to raise him.
Stop his own outbursts or destructive tendencies. And it's really up to his mother to understand this and find a way to help him with these habits. But rather, it's made clear that she would punish him instead. And it's important to add that with these outbursts, I haven't seen anything stating that they were violent or anything physical. Rather, it just seems that they were merely occasional behavioral issues. And this friction-filled relationship extends past just Harley and his mother. On one particular video, we can hear Harley's father, Marcus, yelling and screaming in the background at Harley's mother and 4-year-old sibling because the young child had spilled their drink.
God damn it!
That's so extra. Dang.
asshole right now.
God damn.
Now, time would go on, and these slight moments of concerning behaviors would show up here and there, but for the most part went unseen from his channel. Harley would eventually switch to a brand new page in 2019 called Harley Dilly 2.0, where he continued posting similar content until eventually, on December 10th, 2019, when he would post a typical looking Madden Mobile gameplay video. A video that would turn out to be one of the darkest on the channel, not because it showcased any family fighting or anything along those lines, but because it would prove to be the last video that Harley would ever make. 1 week later, on December 19th, 2019, Harley would complain of an upset stomach and ask his mother if he could stay home from school. She would not allow him to, however, telling him to, quote, "Get your ass to school," and so he left the house, walking towards the school as he always did. Only this time, he wouldn't make it there. Day would turn to night, and not only had Harley not shown up to school, but he wasn't at his home either. And to make matters worse, it was yet another freezing cold night. Still, Harley's parents did not seem overly worried, as they would end up waiting until the next morning to report.
Your 12-year-old son goes missing. He doesn't show up to school. He doesn't come home. And you let all day go by? Oh, what the fuck?
Their son,
bro, my parents would have torn up the whole fucking town.
As missing. Harley's mother Heather would take to Facebook in a now deleted post, begging people to help find her son, but days would quickly pile up into weeks with no sign of the 14-year-old boy. As search efforts ramped up and the story became national news, people began to stumble across Harley's channel, discovering videos like the "I'm Scared" livestream, calling many to question the parents' potential involvement in his disappearance, as it seemed throughout these videos that Harley had been potentially neglected or even abused. This theory was especially prevalent given the fact that they had waited a whole day to report Harley as missing, as well as the cold message that Heather had left Harley with that morning. However, most others believed that Harley had just ran away under the guise of going to school. Either way, authorities had no clue where Harley could have gone, as he just vanished without leaving a trail behind. However, on January 13th, 2020, this would all change. That day, police had searched an empty home across the street, which at the time no one was living in, as it served more as a summer home for the owners. When searching the house, police would find clothing that belonged to Harley, including his jacket, sweatpants, a single sock, and slip-on shoes. His glasses were also found lying there as well. It was clear that Harley had been in that home, but the rooms were all empty, and there was no sign of him at all, other than his clothing. It wasn't until investigators decided to look up the chimney that they would find what they were looking for. Lodged within the narrow, claustrophobic opening was Harley's decomposing body, trapped within its four walls. Coroners would later conclude that he had died of compressive asphyxiation, which happens when respiration is prevented by external pressure of the body. According to official reports, it was believed that Harley had attempted to get inside the locked house, knowing it was vacant, by going through the chimney. Right next to the house stood a telephone pole with prongs like a ladder that he would have likely taken to get up there. Once on the roof, Harley then supposedly attempted to slide down the chimney, an opening that was just 9 by 13 inches. But once halfway down, Harley would become stuck, having just enough room to shed his clothing in an attempt to have just a little bit more space. Unable to climb out of the chimney, and now in a minimal amount of clothing, Harley would have been stuck there in the cold, with virtually no hope of survival, as no one was home to hear his screaming.
To get away. No,
it would be within that chimney that Harley
he didn't feel good, and he just wanted to be inside of a house away from his parents.
Would slowly suffocate to death.
He didn't have a safe place at home.
It's a heartbreaking way to go, but even though this is the official conclusion, there are still many who point blame at the parents, with many even thinking that they were somehow involved. This is not only because of the circumstances seen throughout the channel, but also because of the behavior of Harley's father. While police were frantically searching for Harley, his father had allegedly bragged about the amount of coverage that this case was getting. He had also told his colleagues that he was taking out a life insurance policy on Harley just a week after he had disappeared and 2 weeks before his body was found. And when describing the relationship that Marcus had with Harley, his own son, he described it as strained, saying, "We know each other, and there's a relationship there. He knows I'm his dad, and he's my son, but the relationship is
as a father,
rocky."
bro.
Now, honestly,
like,
I've never...
There's really no excuse to have a rocky relationship with your 11-year-old son as a father. Like, fix that shit, bro. What the hell?
heard a father talk like this about their own son,
real
especially
shorty.
when that son was missing. And so I can understand why people have red flags about the parents, especially with the dark clues left behind on his channel. Plus a slew of other minor inconsistencies throughout the entirety of the case that truthfully would require a full documentary to go over every detail. But ultimately, there is no actual concrete physical evidence that proves that this was anything other than an accident. An accident spurred on as a combination of Harley's autism and his frayed relationship with his parents, a relationship that led to his eventual running away and ultimately his death. And seeing it play out through his channel is an eerie thing, as it subtly hints at the fate that would soon befall him. But in Harley's case, these clues were hidden, buried within a channel that was otherwise nothing out of the ordinary. But this isn't always the case. Sometimes you stumble across a dark channel with nothing to hide, and oftentimes those can be the most disturbing.
More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
This next channel takes us all the way back to the spring of 2006. A time that was essentially the dawn of YouTube. It's a period that has left behind some of the strangest contents on the site. And through it all was a single forgotten account known as Leather Smoke Me, a channel seemingly dedicated to smoking cigarettes. The page shows a man who rarely speaks, as he finds creative ways to smoke, with his very first upload being called Gas Mask Smokin'.
What up, Pinkay? Heartbreak. How are you chillin'?
The video itself is quite uneventful, as this man does exactly what the title says. He smokes a cigarette with the use of a gas mask. And though it's clearly a fairly extreme way of smoking, it's nothing compared to what we'd see in his following videos.
That's insane.
Throughout his first year, this man would smoke cigars out of his nose, smoke multiple cigarettes in his mouth, and even a combination of both. It is definitely a strange thing to watch, especially all these years later, but in the realm of early YouTube, it was nothing all that crazy. However, as the years would go by, we would see Leather Smoke Me continue to push boundaries and find new ways to smoke more and more. At one point, he even built a contraption that allowed him to smoke 10 cigarettes at a time. It's really a shocking thing to see, just the way things progressed throughout the early years of this channel, especially knowing the effects that just smoking on an average basis can have on your body. But as time went on, his smoking habits weren't the only noticeable change. In the beginning, we can see that this man looks to be clearly an adult, but definitely isn't all that old, and just based off of the footage provided, he seems to be in decent health, or at least as healthy as someone can be with the lifestyle he was living. But as time goes on, his appearance starts to slowly change. He begins to look much older, with noticeable paleness and aging within his face, and along with this, his appearance becomes much more fragile, to the point where this man looks to be completely withered, even having a noticeable bandage on his neck in his later videos.
Damn.
And all this happened in the span of just a few years, yet it seems like he's aged a lifetime. By 2011, Leather Smoke Me just looks like a shell of a person, but he just kept on smoking and uploading these videos. I mean, his upload frequency was pretty crazy, considering that in just 5 short years, he would post around 229 videos, without ever taking any major time away. Something that is somewhat surprising, especially for a channel as small as Leather Smoke Me's. But nonetheless, he seemed to just love making these videos, and he just kept on smoking. Until video 195. In it, we see the unrecognizable man smoking a single cigarette while listening to Lady Gaga's Alejandro. By the ending, the song finishes, and he attempts to speak to his audience, but his words are impossible to understand. The video was posted on July 10th, 2011, with the caption, "Still here and still smoking." This would be the final video he'd ever post. The red flags here are obvious. An obsessive smoker who was withering before our eyes and just randomly stopped posting on a channel that was so clearly one of his life's passions. It's not hard to speculate on what became of him. And just by following the trail he left behind, the evidence confirms my dark suspicion. In a video uploaded on January 31st of 2011, we see this smoker looking especially ill, something that is confirmed by his description, where he says, "My return after cancer surgery."
Oh my god.
He elaborates more on this in the following video when he writes, "Hey guys, after a 6-month battle with oral cancer, I'm still here and still smoking. Dave." With this information, we know that Dave had cancer, a cancer likely caused by his rampant smoking. Yet even through a major surgery, he was still continuing to smoke these cigarettes, doing the very thing that likely led to his failing health in the first place. And as it turns out, the cancer would prove to be fatal. I wanted to let Dave's friends on here know that he passed away last night. I have good memories of our friendships over the last 11 years, and he will be missed. This comment, along with multiple others on the channel, addressed to Dave, all seem to confirm what many of us were thinking, that Dave had passed away after posting this final video. It's a channel that is probably as dark as it gets, a man documenting the literal thing that would end up taking his life. And it's so saddening seeing his addiction get to the point that even though he knew it was going to kill him, he just kept on smoking. It's almost as if this channel shows a man in a 5-year-long suicide.
That's crazy.
Now, though this channel is dark in and of itself, there's a whole other side to this all that might make things even more disturbing. And it's something that initially I had completely missed until I read the following comments.
They'll drink themselves,
the thread reads,
themselves,
"Smoker with cancer, such a frail man in his late 40s. He loved to smoke." Someone then responds with, "Exactly correct. The man ruined his life. I love it." The original commenter then replies, "Me too. Love the damage that Dave inflicted on his lungs. So f***ing hot. I'm pretty much following in his footsteps. I have an insatiable craving for my smoke." It's a alarming set of comments, as it's almost as if these people were sexualizing Dave's death and the fact that the smoking had caused this horrible cancer. And it's made even stranger when the commenter says he wanted to follow in his footsteps. It's something that could have easily been chalked up to as a troll, until you realize that throughout many of his videos, even in the beginning, there were similar sexualized comments, with people saying stuff like, "Hot as hell, just missed some lung spit. Hot mate, be great for you to do more vids where we can hear the cough and the wheeze. Hearing that is the hottest thing of all. Keep smoking hard, fella." And, he was starting to show his illness a bit here, with his sunken eyes and getting skinny. Cancer god. Love it when smokers' cancer starts to shrivel them up.
What the fuck?
Even in YouTube standards, this is a strange comment section, and it's clear that people were viewing Dave's cancer and his death as sexually appealing. And after watching this video, I then realized that Dave's entire channel was seemingly meant to be fetishized, as he posts videos of himself showing off his gut and his wheeze for his audience, knowing that they're enjoying it in a sexual way. He even at one point posted this fairly disturbing clip where he has someone wrapped in latex completely with a gas mask on and then forces them to smoke. All the while he touches himself in a sexual way that I'm clearly not going to show. But this is definite fetish material. And further going off that, he even subscribed to and linked to a number of other smoking channels that were obvious fetish pages as well, that follow the same mold as him, and he went as far as to put these accounts on his home page. And of the 4 separate channels that he links to that showcase other obsessive smokers, none of them have uploaded in years, making me wonder if they suffered from a similar fate. But ultimately, it proves that Dave created this channel not simply as a hobby, but as a fetish as well. Now, having a smoking fetish is a fairly common thing, but it's easy to tell that this is very different than just that, as these people seem to be aroused by the most disturbing parts of smoking: the coughing, the wheezing, and the eventual cancer and death. Now, I've heard of fetishes where people like to watch others destroy their body, typically from overeating, to the point where they become obese and handicapped, along with others who fetishize the idea of doing that to themselves. They like the feeling of their own body shutting down slowly over time, thanks to their destructive behaviors. Although this is something that I wasn't really sure actually existed. But watching this channel, I can't help but wonder if Dave was into something similar. Maybe he liked the idea of his body decaying due to his smoking, and that's why he did it so obsessively, and continued to do it even when his health began to fail. So maybe this was the end game all along with this fetish, but either way, it's dark no matter what, because on one hand, it may have been his overarching goal to end his life by way of cigarette smoking. But on the other hand, if it wasn't, then you just have a group of people who are sexualizing this man's cancer and ultimately his death. But judging by his descriptions and his frequent upload schedule, it's hard to believe that he wasn't at least aware of his audience, even posting videos especially for specific users who left comments making special requests. For his followers, Dave's passing was ultimately something they expected. But for our next channel, the disturbing mark that they would leave came out of nowhere. It was an account that featured sparse and practically unwatched content. The channel's name was Big Money T, and featured just a select few videos by a man named Trent Pashal. Over the course of the next 5 years, it seemed the thing that he would film most was his RC cars and family trips, showcasing his 2 young children, as well as his wife, Savannah. It was the type of content that someone puts on YouTube, so they can look back on and remember their good times with the family. The channel would remain active up until late October of 2020, when it would take the ultimate turn for the worst. Trent would upload a video titled simply by his daughter's full name, as the video was directed at both of Trent's children, as he apologized to them, further stating that this was their mother's fault and that he had caught her cheating.
I'm recording this because I want my daughter to know that I love you, Pascal. I'm so sorry that I've done this. I want you to know that you mean everything to me. I didn't choose this. Your mom chose this. She's been cheating on me for a long time. I didn't do nothing wrong to her.
It's a clip that you can tell is deeply personal, and probably not something that should be posted for everyone to see, as at first many would likely assume that this was in regards to a potential divorce or something along those lines. But in actuality, what Trent was talking about was far more twisted. On October 21st, 2020, the very day that the video was posted, Trent would hide in the shower of his bathroom, waiting for his wife Savannah to come home. Once Savannah had entered the bathroom, Trent would jump out, pulling a gun and firing twice, hitting her in the stomach. Savannah would later pass away due to her injuries. Immediately after the murder, Trent would post this video to his children, apologizing for murdering their own mother, while at the same time blaming her for all this happening.
I put everything into this relationship. I have done nothing to your mom. I've never hit her. I've never hurt her. I've never called her names.
Throughout the video, Trent appears to cry on multiple occasions, although no tears actually fall.
I haven't done anything wrong. I'm like, why me? My hair's a mess and I look horrible.
My hair's a mess and I look horrible. Why does that matter right now?
And it comes across as completely emotionless, as he shows no remorse for killing his wife and the mother of his kids. It's also made all the more disturbing, as he's clearly more focused on his hair and his looks, all the whilst he swears up and down that he is a good man.
I'm hurting so bad. I didn't do nothing wrong to her. I provided what I could. I've done what I could for her. I've done nothing but good for her. And I've treated y'all good. I've done good things for y'all.
A narcissist.
After the video would go live, Trent would then call Savannah's aunt to confess to his crime and then take off from the home. Police would later find Trent at a local Walmart where he would pull a gun, but before he could shoot, authorities would open fire, striking the man in 3 separate places. And though being in critical condition, he would go on to survive these injuries and is currently awaiting trial. It's a shocking crime and an equally as shocking video, especially given the fact that it was addressed to his young children, who now are without their mother. I mean, the whole situation is just wrong, but there is one more detail that makes this video even more disturbing. Throughout this final post, Trent can be seen looking to the right very often in a clearly nervous manner until the end when something catches his attention, causing him to grab the phone and run into a dark room before the recording would suddenly stop. And at first, I honestly thought that he was just nervous about the police coming and catching him. But in actuality, I don't think that that's the case. Instead, I think that his nervous looks to the side were being done in anticipation to his wife arriving at home. I say this because when he eventually gets up to hide, it sounds like someone had entered the house.
Love me like your own.
And when he walks into this dark room and shuts the camera off, you can clearly hear what seems to be the movement of a shower curtain. This sound is definitely noteworthy, considering the fact that Trent had hid in his shower before killing his wife. So I personally believe that this whole video was premeditated, and rather than this being filmed right after the murder, he filmed this immediately before, as he likely shot and killed Savannah just moments after stopping the recording. It's a revelation that makes his demeanor all the more surprising, as he shows no remorse, regret, or even that much nervousness for that matter, despite knowing what he's about to do. The video itself quickly went viral, as the story became a national talking point, which led to YouTube stepping in and removing Trent's channel altogether, stating multiple community guideline breaches. However, today, this twisted clip can still be found circulating throughout the site. And as is the case with each of these 3 channels, the videos they have all left behind elicit that same uneasy feeling when you watch them back today, knowing the fate that would soon befall each of them. But out of all these channels, none of them quite match how visually creepy our final page is.
Oh wow, there's a worse.
The channel's name is Francine Dancer, and before I can even begin to describe her videos, just have a look for yourself. That was a clip taken from her 2010 video called Tomstat Blues 088.avi that plays out the bizarre scene of a cat stuffed animal playing a keyboard, as well as a lady named Francine playing the guitar and singing. But out of all the elements of this decade-old video, it's clear which one is the most concerning. Highlighted within this clip is this off-looking, lifelike figure standing nearly motionless. However, there are certain moments where it appears to be moving, likely as a result of Francine dancing alongside it. It's unclear upon initial viewing what exactly this thing is, but the way it just stands there in such a limp manner implies that whatever it is, it's likely not alive. It's a figure that makes this video extremely unpleasant to watch, and as we're about to see, this wasn't the only clip that would feature it. In fact, in her very next upload, Francine gives us a closer look.
Oh!
It's something to me that appears completely unrecognizable. I mean, the figure does look very mannequin-like. However, this face is like no other mannequin I've ever seen. It looks dirty, almost decrepit. And to make things even darker, this thing appears to be hung by the ceiling. Francine would go on to post 4 total videos featuring this thing before abandoning the channel altogether, having gone unnoticed by the majority of the platform. Well, that was until just recently, when some of these clips were picked up and shared across TikTok, throwing the channel and its strange contents into the limelight. Without context, many felt frightened, with the majority looking to the comments for guidance as to what was happening within these videos. And there, many would share the supposed story of Francine. The story goes that Francine used to be a star on TV, before the partner she performed with eventually passed away, essentially ending the show that the two had made together, and thus ending Francine's lifelong dream of becoming an actress. This would cause Francine to suffer a mental collapse, leading her to steal the body before it was buried and hiding it within her home. Once there, she would film these videos to relive the show that they once had in a desperate showing of denial, until eventually police would intervene and take the body back, leading to the arrest of Francine. Now, normally, something as outlandish as this could easily be chalked up as an internet myth, but in actuality, someone would link to a separate video posted back in 2007, and in it we see her performing with a tall, lanky man who has the same body type as this figure. The figure is always shown wearing a bleach blonde wig, which one would imagine that if this man were to wear a similar wig, then the resemblance would certainly be there.
No way.
It's a story that is extremely haunting, and if true, would certainly be one of the darkest internet mysteries found to date. But in actuality, it's really anything but. Just by doing some light research, it's revealed that Francine Dancer was in fact a star on TV, but not in the traditional sense. It seems that Francine had starred in a number of public access television shows in LA, where she would become somewhat of a household name thanks to these bizarre shows that she would put together. And these shows were very similar to what we see on her YouTube page, and not just from a content perspective. They are all similar because they both feature the same figure. And the show didn't just run more than a decade ago. It seems that it was actually active as of 2018. And within the clip, we can see Francine dance with not only that notorious lifelike mannequin, but with a new one as well.
What the fuck?
It's a revelation that completely disproves the myth that this thing was actually a corpse. A theory that baselessly spread around thanks to a few people trying to get a cheap scare out of it. But even though this is the case, what is the actual purpose of this? What are we actually watching here? Well, in other clips posted to YouTube, we see that this figure's name is actually Starry Dancer. It is essentially just a dressed up and painted mannequin. In one episode, Starry is even described as Francine's boyfriend. But ultimately, it seems pretty clear that this is all just an act. It's not an ARG or anything that's meant to be scary. It's just a bizarre, funny show that was really only made creepy due to its lack of context and false stories. And sure, the mannequin is still quite creepy, but the strangeness of it all has helped to propel Francine into a household name for many, while being completely harmless. There's always more to a YouTube channel, and whether it be in a positive or negative way, what we see is never really the whole story. And oftentimes, the pages that seem the scariest end up being the most harmless.
The last one was
It's the accounts that are hidden, buried in a sea of normalcy, that typically hold the darkest secrets. And after 3 installations of this series, I can confidently say that we're just getting started, and I can only imagine what we'll uncover next.
Bro, I love that guy's videos. He makes such good. Shout out to him. Goodness, banger vids.